आदाब, गुड मॉर्निंग। मैं आप सभी का दिल्ली कारवां की तरफ से इस्तकबाल करता हूँ, वेलकम करता हूँ। आज का दिन बहुत ख़ास है, स्पेशली मेरे लिए। वो ये कि 2011 में मैं किसी से मिला था, सेम इसी तरह के एक इवेंट पे जो मॉर्निंग में आज हो रहा है, और आज वो शख्स मेरे साथ खड़े होकर वॉक लीड कर रहा है। थैंक यू। और मेरा नाम आसिफ है और हम दिल्ली कारवां में काम करते हैं, और आज जो है हम आपको विजय मंडल की सैर कराएंगे।
Okay, so I welcome you all to this walk. I see that a lot of us are like may not be so comfortable with Hindi, so we'll try to keep it mostly English, the sprinkles of Hindi, if you don't mind. We all have come together for a heritage walk. If you notice, like subjects like history, architecture, you have courses in this. But for heritage, we have a walk. People prefer a walk because it is not just history, not just architecture. It's more than that. There is a human element to it. So you need to experience it. Of course, we don't have everything in the same shape as it was back then. But at least we have our imagination. We still have remains of the caricature of what it used to be. So it is like, of course, if we approach it through the cognizance, the cognitive skills, it is required. But experience is also like is the key. It's just like swimming. Like it's a vast river. If you know Archimedes' principle, well and good. You can plan your future trips well. But unless you get into the water, you're not going to get that actual feel. So both the things are required, experiential as well as cognitive. So I would request you all to like the facts and other intelligence related things we have on the internet. So let's not like, of course we will be throwing facts at you so that you get reference. But let's try to experience the place more and spend more time in like visualizing that what it would have been. Just like a 3D game happening in your head, like as you progress, things start appearing. And you'll have a lot of references. I'm carrying this book. I've got some maps for you. I'm from the location intelligence background, so that is showing up in my heritage walk.
That's why so much of cognition and imagination. Sunday morning, I didn't imagine that.
Right. So that's become my lingo, so I can't help it now. So yeah, so I'll just give you this was a basic orientation, like how we should approach at this walk. Let me give you an introduction to like, let's first approach to what this place is. Delhi has seen a lot of seats of power historically. Like one of the oldest mentions that we hear is during the time of Mahabharata. There were 5 villages given to the Pandavas that were like Bagpat, Panipat, and those surround this area. The main town of Hastinapur is also nearby, and the capital that the Pandavas set up was like near the banks of Yamuna, where we have the old fort. In more recent times, like in the times of Tomars, that is like 1060 AD, we don't have much records of the duration between Mahabharata and the 1050s, but for sure we have remains of the Tomar era. That is, you must have seen around Valentine's Day, we have a Mela, a fair going on at Surajkund. So that was one of the major ponds developed by one of the kings of the Tomar era. And particularly Anand Pal Tomar, one of the emperors, he decided to shift his capital towards this part of Delhi, the south of Delhi. And he established a fort called Lal Kot, which is like behind the Qutub Minar area. If you enter the Sanjay one, you still see remains of that fort. And I enjoy watching places on Google Maps. So if you open Google Maps, you actually see a track of all the bastions of the fort they are actually fused with the land now. So if you go, you will think that this is a hillock. It's not a fort wall. But if you see on the top view, the whole contour is visible. We do a walk in that area as well, but towards winter, so that like we can walk. It takes around 4 hours or so to explore that area. After that, we move ahead in history to the times of Prithviraj Chauhan. He's a famous figure in this area. He inherited the fort and the empire from. They are related. Like there's a separate whole chapter in the history how Prithviraj Chauhan got the empire from the Tomars. He reinforced the same fort by building almost a parallel wall around it called Kila Rai Pithaur. We still have remains of that place around. If you move just 100 meters ahead of the Malviya Nagar metro station, there is a beautiful lush green lawn, and there is a idol of Prithviraj Chauhan with a horse there. So that place still has like broad walls of that fort still remaining. It stretches up to the golf course and then enters Sanjay Van. You can see inside Sanjay Van as well. So that is considered to be the second capital. Some people just call it like, because it is almost parallel to the first one, like it's difficult to number them as 1 and 2, they're almost the same. After that, like a major incident in the history was Muhammad Ghori coming to this part of India and establishing, like, he did not rule from here, but he left his generals, the most famous being Qutbuddin Aibak, who established the Delhi Sultanate. He started that Sultanate era. In the Sultanate era, we had like, there is a difference between a Badshah and a Sultan. All they do is mostly the same thing, but a Sultan usually has a religious leader on his head. They have a permission from a leader sitting in Baghdad place, and with that permission he rules this land. Whereas a Badshah considers himself to be next after God. Nobody, no middlemen. That's like Shah is God and Badshah, after God is me, the ruler. So the Mughals started that tradition. So after Qutbuddin Aibak, like again there are so many chapters happening, Razia Sultan and Iltutmish and more stories. That's like going to take hours if we discuss that. But that is called the slave dynasty, or to give it a better name, we call it Mamluk dynasty. It was a regime of like, we gave the name slaves, but they were not actually slaves like as servants. They were more like mandarins. They were trained in warfare, trained in politics, and equivalent to like princes, and they actually governed the land. This was sometime around like 1190 or so when this like Sultanate era started. It went on till 100 years, seeing several sultans in between. Then around like after 100 years, 1290 or so, we see the Khalji dynasty coming in. One of the generals from a distant land from India itself, rebelling and claiming the throne, and then we see the Khalji era for quite a long time, but not as long as the Sultanate period. They established their capital at Siri Fort, the place where we have the famous auditorium right now. If you go a little ahead of that auditorium, you will see remains of that fort. We did a small picnic with the team, and a lot of us are fond of that. If you scroll our Facebook page, you'll see the remains of, we have shared photos of that area. Not much remains, like you can actually call it as good as rubble, but that was the next capital of Syria. All this time, like, there was a constant threat of Mongols coming in and attacking this land. So Syria is famous for, like, Alauddin Khalji was like one of the most ruthless kings of that time. And he actually, as a symbol of showing his power, it is the popular like story in that land that he actually beheaded the Mongols and put their heads on the walls of the fort so that the next contingent that they come they get speared. Like that's why head is Sir. So it's a popular belief that the fort is called Siri because they were heads of those enemies hanging there. And after that, one of the generals, again, like history repeats itself. Khalji was also like, the throne was like, he was dethroned and one of the generals like betrayed him and got the throne for some time. But then his loyals called a general from the Sindh area called Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq to regain the throne, and he came here and won and got the throne back. And he established his capital at Tughlaqabad, which is around like 10 to 12 kilometers from this place. And it is one of the marvels of Delhi. It still remains like the way it was set up. Of course, like inside the fort, we don't have the chambers and all, but the fort walls, like they still have the grandeur, and you skip a breath when you pass through that area. If you see on your left, like going towards Badapur, it's a grand fort, and it's one of the premier events that we do once a year, because it's very difficult to travel that terrain like completely, see that totally. So this was like the beginning of the Tughlaq era, around like 1300 something. And then like, as all of like, some of it must be exaggerated, but we always show that the son like trying to claim the throne of his father and all. So event so happened that his son Muhammad bin Tughlaq, he killed off Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, or like planned a murder, and got the throne after killing his dad. So he started ruling for the Tughlaqabad fort. But from the folklore, from the local history that we know, it's not written anywhere, but people think that he was not so comfortable living in that place because of the guilt that he had. So he decided to move the capital. He tried to extend that fort, and there is a very small fortress called Adilabad near Tughlaqabad itself. But again, like maybe the memories haunted him or some other reason, he moved his capital to this area. That is, he called this Jahanpana. He was a pretty ambitious guy, and we all like know him. Now he's referred to as a mad sultan, a mad king. So we'll discuss more about why he was named the mad sultan. I call him ambitious because Jahanpana literally means refuge of the world, where like everybody is welcome and feels safe. And it is also a metaphorical name because what he did was he decided to fortify all previous capitals like Lal Kot, Rai Pithoda, Siri, Tughlaqabad, and wanted to build a massive wall around all these places. And it's a kind of like, it was the world for him, so this was the refuge world, that is my world, covering everything. And he decided to build his palace area between a very green patch between Lal Kot and Siri. There was an empty patch of like maybe orchards or maybe ponds and lakes, and that is this area where we are standing right now. Geographically, it is actually between Siri Fort and Mehroli area, that is the Lal Kot. And this, that on the top that you see is his main private chamber of his palace called Vijay Mandal. That means Victory Pavilion. There must have been a lot of like settlements around this area. You can just imagine that this was the Rashtrapati Bhavan of that time. Broad roads, markets, and so many sepoys all around, and most secure, most beautiful place of that era. So that was the introduction of how like Delhi reached this place. There is like 10 times more history after Tughlaq also, but that we'll cover some other day. So now let's walk inside the complex. This was a good, I guess, a long brief for how Delhi reached this place. How we know about this place and what all is in this complex, we'll discuss at the next stop point. So you can follow me. Adding an element of mystery, because I don't think so you were imagining that you got this kind of a complex beyond these grasses. It's somewhat like people who play video games. If you play a game on a weak computer, the graphics take some time to come up. So it's just like that. Like as we are progressing, some things are emerging up. Let me just refer to a map here. I don't know if this is visible, but you can open actually the location on your Google Maps app. So you'll see this view. This is a complex that we are standing in. We are here right now. We are here. Okay, this is the exact complex that we are standing right now. We'll cover this whole complex. This is Vijay Mandal, and this is another building that we will cover. And then we'll walk to this area. This is the Begumpur Mosque.
We have few
Can you show another group here?
Yeah, sure.
Come here. This is the student who needs to see. She's studying this.
This is the complex that we are in right now. We are here. Vijay Mandal. And there is one interesting thing in this image, like it's not so visible, but researchers claim that there used to be a ramp kind of structure, like either this way or this, like which had a slope going up to that palisade, so that the king doesn't have to like walk or but in that era the technology was not so smart. Must have been made of mud, so it can come down. For those of you who could not see it, you can actually just switch the location on and open the Google Maps. You'll get exactly the same. We just had a question that what was this? A lot of these places, we only have a good guesswork doing that what this could have been, because there is not much officially written records. Even if it was official, you can't believe it. You know, you still have an element of that the king can obviously write that I am a gentleman. But we got a lot of information from the contemporary written works of a very famous man. I guess the most famous travel blogger. Yes, that is Ibn Battuta, who has outdone all the travel bloggers of today. He's still being published on Kindle, if you know. Ibn Battuta, and there was a guy called Badruddin Chach. He was a court poet at that time. History actually, like, of course you get references from the officially written records, but there is a lot of history that a lot of anecdotes that we get from these poetry and stories. I'm sure a lot of us must have heard of Bloody Mardani, Jhansi Wali Rani. This can be exaggeration, but this does hint towards that something like this happened. There was a queen who fought and all. So, and if you get official records also matching, you can like match the era of these two things and then have a greater belief that okay, it actually happened. So similarly, Ibn Battuta has recorded a lot of history and day-to-day stories and his perspectives of. He was actually from Africa, Morocco, and he traveled to Asia and then Southeast Asia, India and China, and then managed to go back as well. So, and he has written very, very interesting records. People who are not even interested in history are going to love his blogs, because he writes that the kind of people I have around me, their stature, what kind of mustaches they keep, and what do they eat, what is their daily food, and how am I feeling in front of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. He writes from that perspective, so you can relate to it a lot. So coincidentally, good for us that he landed in Delhi when Muhammad bin Tughlaq's era started. So we do have kind of day-to-day records of what happened, not daily records, but it was because he was writing from a traveler's perspective. But we do get like a good idea about how this place must have been. And then there is Badruddin Chach, the court poet. So what he writes you should take with a pinch of salt, because most of it must have been sponsored or forced upon him. But then something must have like happened which he's trying to hint. And there is a political thinker of that time called Barni, who was more active during the reign of the successor of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, Firoz Shah Tughlaq. But he basically wrote about like Firoz Shah's reign, but it started with the Tughlaq. So he has written about the past as well. We do get some hints from that. From all these hints, like we're going to discuss and discover like as we move ahead. But let me just tell you like what this place exactly is. As I told, like that highest structure is the private chamber or the palace area, where the king used to like stand and maybe like review his whole empire or the troops, or stay there for the pleasure activities. Right outside that is a place we believe, like seeing the various hints, it is believed that it was a place called Hazar Sutun. Hazar Sutun means, Hazar means 1,000, so it was a hall of 1,000 pillars. This is a metaphorical term, not essentially we had 1,000 pillars. Maybe he had or maybe he didn't. But a lot of kings in that era used to have public audience halls, and they used to call it Hazar Sutun. So like there is a Hazar Sutun in the Adilabad area as well. So Ibn Battuta and Badruddin Chach has also recorded about Hazar Sutun and people coming to the Sultan and with their grievances or getting gifts in this court. So outside that, this area is believed to be Hazar Sutun. And there is this building which looks like an old biogas plant, but it is not. It is very different from other domes of that era. Historians have not been able to identify that what this place could have been. So they just recorded it that time for the sake of it as a curiously domed building. But that phrase has continued till now. So we still don't know what this could have been. So this is referred to as the curiously domed building. Then this complex would have been the gateway, or we could have been like checkpoints here and all. We're not sure of what this structure exactly is, but this is believed to be the entrance to the palace area and must be having like some sort of checking happening here, or we don't know exactly. This complex that you see behind you, there are a few graves. This came up like much later, when the fort was probably already abandoned during the reign of Sikandar Lodi. That is like more than 120 or 150 years after this place was like abandoned. This is believed to be a Sufi saint called Sheikh Hassan Tahir. But that is all like the popular belief, what the locals have been believing and showing their devotion to. It is so old that right now it has geographical significance, as in you can't say that only people following Islam come here. You will see a very interesting thing, that is a wall mosque, okay, that white colored wall. So a wall mosque, like it simply tells us the direction in which we have to face and pray. You don't actually need a big structure to pray as per the Islamic belief. But you have to face towards Mecca. So this wall gives us the direction. Because of this complex, you will see a mosque here and you will see prasad being offered. Right, which is not like a common sight in usual mosques. So it is like everyone, the locals who believed and had devotion in this saint started coming here and offering prayers. Or you'll see such structures like at many places, usually in green patches. Even if you go to Sanjay One, you'll see some graves and people just bowing their head even without knowing who that person was. So this complex like came up much later. It doesn't have any direct contact with Muhammad bin Tughlaq's time. But it's like, I find it a pretty interesting structure.
Well, what about the lovely tree? Is that equally old?
I did not research about that, but yeah, ever since I've been coming here, I've seen this here. And
Yeah, I'm sure.
people.
It's older than you. That's not the point.
So let's go inside. We'll gather at the curiously domed building now. The actual utility of a lot of these places is not known, because I told you that we don't have official records and we don't have the complete structures remaining also. It's ruins, like you don't have seen the 1,000 pillars now. So it's hard to believe that it had like this was a public audience hall. And, so we like a lot of it was guesswork, as we discussed, and that time the researchers could not make a guess about this building, so they just maybe parked it for later as a bookmark, but that chapter didn't ever open up. What we can like spend time doing here is like, if you see this bit has a plaster. It's not like exposed rocks totally. The whole building complex actually used to have plaster all around. It did not look like ruins that time. It was a palace. So they did what you can also imagine is like back then, building a structure as high as this with these heavy stones, it would have been a marvel at that time, and especially this kind of a like circular to perfect circle. Took a lot of hard work. Now like we can say that it's like unfinished or it's not so crisp, but back then it would have been the most modern building. You can now imagine that like if you've been to the Qutub area, again this is not from any history book, my personal observation, that there is a place called Alai Darwaza. It's a very similar like squarish building with a dome, and it was a gateway. Qutub complex area itself. Yeah. So this could have been a gateway maybe towards the palace area, or like to welcome the king, or the lounge area before he enters the court. Or no, there is no name, so that's why it is named as the Curiously Domed Building. Curiously Domed. You can also guess that like seeing the size of the gate, like usually we have this big gate when the king enters on an elephant. It's designed that way. But then again, guesswork. So we can just spend 2 minutes imagining like how it could have been and what would have been the view. Actually, like now we have vegetation all around. It would have been like those 1,000 pillars spread across the area, and people coming in a queue for like reaching to the king for their grievances and all, and a bustling city all around here, just like the Rashtrapati Bhavan, Raisina, or the Red Fort area. You have commandos all around and broad, wide roads. So yeah, let's just spend 2 minutes while I revise my map. There is a beautiful map that I want to show, which will give more context to that era.
तो समोसा पता है बहुत पुराना है, बहुत ज़्यादा पुराना। इनफैक्ट इब्ने बतूता, अब इब्ने बतूता ही ले लो, वो मुसाफिर जो अपने घर से निकला ये बोल के कि वो हज करने जाता है। मैं निकलूँ घर से ये बोल के मैं वैष्णो देवी जा रहा हूँ, ठीक है? तो इमेजिन करो, और वो बंदा तकरीबन 30 साल के लिए भाग गया। वो हज करने निकला और वो घर नहीं पहुंचा। वो वहाँ पहुंचा और वो बहुत सारे अलग अलग लोगों से मिला। तब उसको ये पता चला कि दुनिया जो है वो सिर्फ हमारा मुल्क नहीं, बाहर के बहुत सारे मुल्क हैं जो देखने के लायक। तो वो जो है वहाँ से निकल आया और हर जगह दमिश्क और यहाँ की और हर जगह होते हुए फाइनली वो पहुँचा हिंदुस्तान, और हिंदुस्तान में पहुँचा सिंध। तो ये ज़माना था जब मोहम्मद बिन तुगलक दिल्ली में सुल्तान थे, और ऐसे में कोई दिल्ली नहीं आ जाता था। यहाँ पर हर जगह गेट्स लगे होते थे। आपने गेम ऑफ थ्रोन्स देखी, मोस्ट ऑफ यू देख रहे हो, सेम एकदम। उसको उठा लो, उसको इमेजिन कर लो। तो वो मुसाफिर सिंध पहुँचा, और सिंध पहुँचने के बाद उसने सबसे पहले क्या खाया? समोसा। तो समोसा अब हो गया, पहले होता था समबूसा। तो रेहला जो उसने अपना मुसाफिरनामा लिखा है, उसने मेंशन किया है कि हिंदुस्तान में आकर उसने समोसा खाया। समोसा आलू वाला नहीं, अगर उस टाइम पे आलू वाला बनता तो शायद समोसे की तौहीन होती। तो उसने वो समोसा खाया कीमा वाला, उसके अंदर मटन, और जो मीठा समोसा उसने खाया तो आज भी कभी कभी जैसे कि ओल्ड दिल्ली में मिल जाता है। उसमें बहुत सारे ड्राई फ्रूट्स, काजू, बादाम, और ये खाने के बाद उसने फिर एक खत लिखा, और वो खत भेजा दिल्ली, परमिशन मांगी सुल्तान से कि सुल्तान है यार, क्या मैं शहर पनाह आके आपसे आपका दीदार कर सकता हूँ? और वो फिर खत हिंदू जैसे रेवेंस गेम ऑफ थ्रोन्स में इसी तरीके से वहाँ से वो खत यहाँ आया, और फिर उसको परमिशन दी गई। तो वहाँ से उसने बहुत सारी पहले शॉपिंग की कि वो सुल्तान को गिफ्ट क्या करेगा, नजराना क्या दे, तोहफे क्या दे। तो उसने कई वहाँ से घोड़े खरीदे, ऊँट खरीदे, और इधर उधर की चीज़ें खरीदी। और साथ में जो आपने वो एक मूवी देखी है द क्वीन ऑफ डेजर्ट, एक मूवी आई है, आप देखें तो उसमें एक फॉरनर लेडी होती है, वो अपना घर बार छोड़ के वो रेगिस्तान में चली जाती है। तो वो रास्ते में जहाँ जहाँ वो रुका, उससे जो जो चीज़ मिली उसने उसमें से चीज़ें छाटी, और छाटने के बाद जो है उसने पूरा एक पैकेट बनाया। जैसे होता है ना हिंदुस्तान में जब हम लोग स्पेशली लड़की वालों के यहाँ जाते थे, फलों का टोकरा लेकर, तो उसने पूरा पैकेज बनाया और वो लेकर जो है वो आया दिल्ली, और उसने सुल्तान आली वो तोहफे में दिया। तो यही हज़ार सुकून एक फारसी का वर्ड है जिसका मतलब होता है पिलर, और यहाँ उसने तोहफे में दिया। वो ये भी मेंशन करता है कि हिंदुस्तान में पूरी मिलती है। तो जिस तरीके से हिंदुस्तान के खुले दरवाज़ों से तुर्की अफ़गानी, नॉट मुस्लिम्स, तुर्की अफ़गानी एंड उज़्बेकी, ये लोग ईरानी लोग जब आए तो अपने साथ घोड़ों को लेकर तो आए हैं, साथ में वो तंदूर लेकर आए। तो तंदूर गाड़ते हुए वो चले, अपने साथ वो लेकर आए तंदूरी रोटी, और यहाँ पर थी पूरी। तो तंदूरी रोटी और पूरी मिलके क्या बना? पराठा। राइट, तो ये उस ज़माने की बात है। सो नाउ वाले एंड ओवर टू
So let's move to the Rajasthan area. Positive thing that you must have been amazed at seeing this complex. Nobody can imagine, like in narrow streets, like the streets of this place, Kalu Sarai, Jia Sarai, and they lead to a palace.
I was even trying to imagine that Sarvapriya के क्लब के एंट्रेंस के सामने ऐसा कुछ स्ट्रक्चर है क्या है, I was still contemplating that. तो यहाँ पे आने के बाद जब देखा लोग खड़े होके, this is the entrance at least I can see. Because बाहर से कुछ पता नहीं चलता, बाहर से you can see something is there, but इतना बड़ा होगा स्ट्रक्चर है.
So this place is believed to be the actual place for Hazar Satoon, the Hall of Public Audience, and now we have all the like tall grass all around. But back then, when this place was restored and all, we do see pillar bases. If you've been to Kotla Firozshah, the next capital, like after this, right? So there you do see pillar bases. We don't have vegetation there, so we can see like pillar bases of this height. The pillars have fallen, but the bases are there. So similarly, there were bases all around. One very peculiar thing that we come to know from Ibn Battuta's records is that like he obviously like tells about the glory of this city. As we discussed, like this was an ambitious project covering all the capitals with a fort wall. So Ibn Battuta mentions that as I enter like Muhammad bin Tughlaq's capital, it is a grand city with 28 gates. At that time, the gates were named by the direction like they led to. Like if the gate is towards Badaयूं, so it is Badayuni gate, Lahori gate. So similarly, you have like still a few of the gates remaining in the Old Delhi area. So every fort had like different gates. He describes that all these gateways had like huge spaces for defense personnel, granaries, areas for market, for stocking like the stuff. You have silos and all those stuff, like he mentions that, and even compares it with the micro Mecca. Like it is like one of the premium cities of the Islamic East. He mentions that like this was the hall of public audience, and again could be metaphorically that this was Hazar Satoon. But one thing that he mentions about the architecture is that the pillars and the ceilings are wooden with beautiful carvings. So we can understand that like wood doesn't withstand that much time, so it must have fallen. And also it was easy. It was not so easy that time to carve on like stone and have beautiful ceilings. So they had the concept of false ceilings like we do still have. So you can imagine like wooden pillars all around, and if you see like this structure, like looks like must have been extended, and this could have been a gateway. Like we still only have like ruins of this, but some canopy kind of like coming from here, and the king standing here and addressing everyone. Then this is the like we started from that side. So this is like towards the Begumpuri Mosque here, surrounded by like all horse riding men and sepoys and common public. And Badruddin Chach, who is the court poet, he exaggerates a bit, I guess, because he calls it, that this hall is equivalent to the jury like of Allah. Like this is the hall of God. My king is like God, and he gives justice to everyone. So that was like obviously a little exaggeration, because court poets would write this for all the kings they are employed for. So let's enter this area and explore a bit more further. Inside this, like apparently this was you will see a depression in the floor, which is unlike the rest of the flooring. So when this was being excavated, researchers did find some gold coins and some like remains of gold here. There are stories of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq ordering that molten gold should be like stuffed inside the Tughlaqabad fort. So like relating it to those stories, researchers have like mentioned that this could have been a treasure pit. If you see like those kind of like structures like which lead to silos further inside, this could have been gold pits or treasure pits back then, concealed under a floor and like so that nobody can see. So out here somewhere his throne would have been, Muhammad bin Tughlaq's throne, where he sat and gave the decisions, but we don't know like which place. Is a lot of it is like just broken. And see, you have structures like this, pillar bases, not small, like it expanded up to like the whole complex. Yeah, that has fallen because it was wooden ceiling. It's like the area that you saw on the image is not the whole stuff. It's like what remains now. It would have been like expanding much beyond to the IIT, JNU area and on this side. This is not the whole capital. This is just the president's house. Just the palace. Here you would have like the king and his babu sitting and like doing the office work, and the juries or like his ministers and all gathering here, and not Diwani Khas. Diwani Khas is like upstairs. This is Diwani Aam, and this is the office for Diwani Aam.
Just like a king's painting में यहाँ पे ये वो आयरन स्टोन रखा हुआ, just like a दीवाने यहाँ. Okay, like with your permission, like उसमें मैं थोड़ा सा ऐड करना चाहूँगा. Okay, so वहाँ पे आदित्य भैया ने बताया वहाँ पे like खजाना वगैरह वो होता है. So as you remember, कि मोहम्मद बिन तुगलक जो था वो उसको पगला सुल्तान भी कहते हैं. So in short हुआ ये था कि जब उसने तांबे के पीतल के सिक्का वगैरह चलाए, तो जो दिल्ली के जो हिंदू सुनार थे उन्होंने अपने घर में टकसाल बनाया. टकसाल जहाँ पे सिक्के बनते हैं, तो यहाँ से सरकारी सिक्के तो निकलते ही थे, उनके पास उससे ज़्यादा होते थे. एट द एंड ऑफ द डे उनकी जो पॉलिसी थी वो पूरी तरीके से फेल हो गई, और ये कहा जाता है कि उन सिक्कों के बदले में जो बाहर किनारों में बनाए थे, उनके बदले में भी चांदी के सिक्के जो सल्तनत की तरफ से दिए. तो इसमें बतूता मेंशन करता है कि टिल 1333 में व्हेन ही अराइव, तो वो जो पुराने सिक्के थे पीतल और तांबे, इसी पैलेस के दरवाजे के सामने जो है वो लगे हुए हैं. और कुछ टाइम पहले, कुछ अर्सा पहले जब यहाँ पे एक्सकेवेशन वगैरह हुआ, आई जस्ट हर्ड कुछ ठीक लोगों को एक आध मिले. तो मैं आया था एक बार स्कूल में जब मैं था, इनका कुछ मिल जाए यहाँ से स्कूल ना जाना पड़े.
ये उस जमाने का डिमोनेटाइजेशन हुआ था. पुराने सिक्के वापस करे थे तो बड़ी
मतलब इतना ज़्यादा कि उसने मिस्र को जीतने की कोशिश की, उसने गजनी को जीतने की कोशिश की, एंड ही डिसाइडेड कि भैया चलो चाइना को इन्वेड करते हैं. बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली उसके जो लोग थे आसपास वो बहुत सपोर्टिव नहीं थे, बहुत आगे था पीछे धीरे धीरे चलते तो अपनी अफसरशाही का शिकार कर.
So while Badruddin Shah was busy exaggerating about the king, he writes one very interesting fact. That too, like probably he wrote for boasting that there was a very famous architect at that time called Zahiruddin Al-Jayush. He was from Iran, I believe so. I'll have to research that. But for boasting, probably because he writes it that the complex was designed by Zahiruddin Al-Jayush. You know, the way we say that we must boast के speaker, that says it all. So like if it is designed by Zahiruddin Al-Jayush, then you know that it's the palace, like it's the most premium building. So let's go to the next level. We'll have to go like outside and enter that chamber. It's little narrow, but I assure you that you're going to get a very good view from there, and we'll discuss more about Muhammad bin Tughlaq and his policies there. So now we'll talk a little bit about the Sultan himself, Muhammad bin Tughlaq. After Hazar Sutur, like this is a more private space where his personal like ministers and like family maybe gather, and something like how the president takes the ministers and all take the salute of the army and they review the troops. So this is that place where he used to, maybe he used to do all this. So Muhammad bin Tughlaq is a very peculiar character in the history. We still have a famous play by the famous actor Girish Karnad being played called Tughlaq. So why is that so? Like why only Tughlaq?
He stands out in the history of that changed capital. He minted coins which were different, which are now being used more. That point of time, he did so many things which were new.
So he was quite courageous to take like out of the world decisions and make new laws, which today if we look back, a lot of it seems sensible. But that time it was not so. For example, the more like ma'am mentioned that he shifted capitals. One fine day he like
It wasn't one fine day. It was a decision that he took because all the while Delhi was being attacked by invaders from from the Mongols, from wherever. So that is why I decided to go to a more entrenched area like Daulatabad. That is the reason that.
Yeah, so I've got that story here. So people don't know what is going on in his head. Okay. So how an observer knows is that one fine day the king has told me to shift. He has ordered that we are shifting capital to Daulatabad. He wanted to have two capital cities. This one was there and he wanted to have another one. So that time people just thought that like suddenly he has ordered, and of course there was no plan to it. Later on, like I'm going to show you a map through which you will think that the decision was correct. But then he didn't plan it that way. Like he noticed that okay, I should have a capital in Daulatabad, but he suddenly told everyone to move. And the political critic Barni gives a lot of details. Even Ibn Battuta gives details about how force was used on people to shift. And there are a lot of bloody and gory descriptions of how people were made to move, so I'm not discussing those unless someone wants to discuss. So yeah, there's an interesting map that I found. Which tells us completely that why he took that decision. So this was how the slave dynasty started, okay. This is north of India. Can we see like this? Yeah, that'll be better. Yeah. This is how the slave dynasty actually started. That shaded area is their empire. Then we have Khalji coming, who extended it further up in the north, around the northwest frontier, I guess, the Indus Valley area. Then Tughlaq, yeah. Then Tughlaqs come in. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq starts ruling here and starts some conquest, but soon within a few years taken over by his son. And then you see the run rate going up. Whoa. Big way. So Muhammad bin Tughlaq made this happen, and just thinking of this as roughly an elliptical figure. Ellipse has two centers, so one is this, and straight line below this is Devgiri Daulatabad. For managing south, he needs to have a capital here. So as we saw that, like he decided to shift the capital. But the contemporary political thinkers like Barni, they have mentioned that like it made a lot of sense to shift the capital, but it was not planned. But there is one more mention by Ibn Battuta, which proves that like he did think about it. Ibn Battuta mentions about Muhammad bin Tughlaq's mother and that she was a very prominent figure that time. And before shifting the capital, he sent his mother there to as maybe a PR strategy or what, like I'm sending an important like a person close to my heart to that land, so that people out there get familiarized and they know that okay, they have a belief in them. And he also sent there are records that like he was not so fond of Sufis and all, but then again he's credited with constructing the Nizamuddin Dargah, the tomb, which like is the most famous Dargah complex of this area. So along with his mother, he also sent Sufis because he knew that Sufis like connect with the soul of people, and if not for anything else, people will come for the Sufis, will trust them. So he sent Sufi saints to that land before actually passing this decision. So that seems to be a well thought of thing to do. Asif also mentioned that he decided to use token currency, which we do now, like it is not actual gold that we have. And this was not like a unique decision as such, like Chinese were doing it already successfully, but probably he missed some part of it, so he was not able to like make a strategy properly, and people started minting their own coins, due to which like it did not succeed. Everyone had a lot of money, and he had to like roll back the decision and also take all this fake currency from people and pay them back in actual gold and silver. So that's why also his ambitious project of Jahanpana, the walled city, could not get completed because of shortage of funds. All this again like we get from Ibn Battuta's records and other people's records. I'll just see if I have another map. As we go upstairs, and that is the most private space, pleasure pavilion of the king. We'll be going to Begumpur Mosque next, which is that way.
Okay, so one more thing like while Aditya sorry like moving कि यहाँ से कैपिटल ट्रांसफर करने की वजह क्योंकि नॉर्थ में है यहाँ से इट वाज इजी टू मैनेज लाइक नॉर्दर्न एम्पायर, पर साउथ में जो है उधर काफ़ी सारी बगावत वगैरह होती रहती थी दक्कन की तरफ। तो उसने कहा कि यार हिंदुस्तान जैसा मुल्क उसमें एक कैपिटल से तो कुछ होगा नहीं, तो उसने दूसरी बनाई ताकि वो वहाँ से उसको मैनेज कर पाए। अभी जो 1500 मील का जो ये सड़क थी, अब बेशक उसके जो है मंसूबे कैसे ही रहे हों और वो कामयाब ना रहा हो, पर उसको बड़ा अफसोस हुआ कि एक बार वो कुतुब मीनार के ऊपर था और उसने जो है जब नज़रें दौड़ाई तो वो जो है अपने वज़ीर को कहता है कि मतलब देखो, मतलब एक ज़माना था कि जब आप खड़े हो जाते थे यहाँ तो पूरे शहर में जो है ऐसा लगता था कि जैसे जो है वो दिवाली आ गई है, रात में हर घर में जो है वो चिराग नज़र आते थे। ये मैंने क्या कर डाला, मतलब अब तो हर जगह जो है अंधेरा ही नज़र आता है। और उसे बहुत ज़्यादा रिग्रेट हुआ इस चीज़ का, एंड उसने कहा कि ठीक है जितने भी लोग हैं उनको वापस दिल्ली बुला लें। तो दिल्ली जो है फिर वापस जो है वो कैपिटल ऑफ इंडिया हो गई। पर यहाँ से वहाँ ले जाने का फ़ायदा ये हुआ कि उस 1500 मील लंबी जो सड़क थी उससे रास्ता खुल गया, साउथ और नॉर्थ कनेक्ट हो गया। तो वहाँ का कल्चर यहाँ आया और यहाँ का कल्चर फिर वहाँ गया, तो बैलेंस हो गई थोड़ी बहुत चीज़ें। इसके अलावा लाइक आदित्य सर तो बता ही रहे हैं, इसके अलावा अगर किसी भी तरह के सवालात आपके पास हों सोसाइटी को, खाने पहनने उठने मतलब हर चीज़ को लेकर, तो आप प्लीज़ हम लोगों से पूछ सकते हैं। प्लीज़ मन में कोई सवाल ना रखें, ये ना सोचें कि वो सवाल कितना छोटा है या कितना आड़ा है या कितना अच्छा है। प्लीज़ जो भी दिल में आए वो पूछ लें, राइट। तो हम लोग भी इतने बड़े एक्सपर्ट्स नहीं हैं, बट कोशिश करेंगे कि आपके सवाल का जवाब दे सकें। क्यों सर?
We'll have a small discussion about Ibn Battuta where we discuss samosa and much beyond that. When we go to Begumpur Mosque, so let's first see the architecture and the less fun things. We find that and talk about the more like fun and awesome things. Yeah, we do. This way. We're not standing here for long. We can take the selfies and interesting photos here. if you want, you got a nice view, and like we are liking standing here exactly. The king must have been doing pleasure activities, having a drink in the evening here, or something like that. It's believed to be a pleasure pavilion. If you see, there are big holes like that one. Could have been for pillars that supported a canopy above. So that's a guess, a good guess, I guess, because a lot of other modern structures also have such pillars. That is the Begumpur Mosque.
I'm talking about
That is Select City.
70.
Out there we have Qutub Minar.
Which direction?
That's I see Qutub Minar. And out there those are the Sakib mosques. You see them? There is there are two theories of when this mosque actually came up. One is that very strong belief that this was the main mosque, Jami Masjid, where people actually gather for the city of Jahanpana. Seeing the size of this mosque and the vicinity to the palace area, people believe so that this could have been Muhammad bin Tughlaq's key major mosque for this city. But what opposes this belief is that there is no written record. Ibn Battuta has mentioned even the smallest things in his blogs, but not about this mosque. And another fact, the other belief is that the mosque actually came up during the reign of the successor of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, that is Firoz Shah Tughlaq. It is believed so because for the Tughlaq there was a minister from the Telangana area called Khani Jahan Telangani. He won them several battles, and during the later part of his career he was asked to build 7 mosques in Delhi, which look pretty similar to each other and have a common element of architecture. The closest one is the Khirki Mosque, right bang opposite to the Saket malls, but hidden behind the shops. It is again of this grand size, but it has a ceiling and so many pillars around. It's a nice view. So they built 7 mosques. Khani Jahan Telangani and his son Khani Jahan Junan Shah Telangani. So this event in history has been recorded that 7 mosques were built in Delhi with similar structure. And this one looks very much like those mosques, and this also completes the count of 7. We have a friend called Vikramjit Singh Ruprai, if you follow Heritage Walks. He has written a nice article called 7 Wonders of Delhi about those mosques. So it's like the Kala Masjid, the Khirki Masjid, this Masjid. So if we go by that belief, then it was built by that father and son duo. If we go by the previous belief, then it could have been the design by Zahiruddin Al-Jayush, who actually designed the palace area. Those are the two beliefs. I was going to discuss about Ibn Battuta up there, but some of us want to leave and the kids are hungry and all. So I'll do the storytelling here. And for the more adventurous ones, we can go upstairs. And rest can disperse if they're feeling uneasy right now. I have an image, a top view of this mosque. Hold it up. So this is the top view. It's from Google Maps itself. Right? In this part, you will see there is a small structure that is that area. It is believed to be the separate hall for women, the Janani area of the mosque. But the access to that, the doorway is this high. You have to really stoop and go. And there is a hall, like a pillared hall inside. People were using it for like toilet few years back, but now it is clean. But like there's nothing else. But yes, like if you want, we can go there. You get another view of this mosque. Like it actually faces the small shops and the residential area, and you actually see the difference like between a medieval. You're standing in a medieval building and you have the modern shops out there. But it is like little tough for people who are claustrophobic. Very tough for them. I can like a person of my size can barely like enter that, and the walls touches my shoulders when I'm walking. So that was about the mosque. Little bit trivia about Ibn Battuta, like the person due to whom like we know so much about that era. So as I told that like he was from Morocco and he traveled east, like Asia, Southeast Asia, China and all. Some of his very interesting mentions, like currently also his book is published in English, is called Rihla. So you can find that on Flipkart or Kindle, there, Amazon, etc.
What's the name again?
Rihla. R-E-H-L-A or R-I-H-L-A. Which means travel, I guess. Not very sure, but it means travel.
Yeah, Safarnama.
Safarnama. So I'll just quote some of the interesting perspectives that he mentioned. One was like we always like remember him as a like glorious traveler and very celebrated traveler. But right now also, if you know that if you are just visiting any place and with your camera clicking photos in a foreign land and you end up in a private space, there is an element of suspicion, like people get suspicious about you. So similar was the case with Ibn Battuta. While the state welcomed him and gave him like a good stature and even access to the king's pavilion, but there was always like an eye watching him. So he had that feeling that I am being watched, and certain of his like, even like, I don't know if it was deliberate or non-deliberate, if you enter some space or some prohibited area, like you don't know, like people can think that it's a deliberate attempt that you want to barge into some place and all. So his stay in India was like mostly like he was welcome, but constantly he was little afraid that what if like, especially for someone like Muhammad bin Tughlaq, like agar satak gaya uska, one day he goes crazy and like just beheads him. So he was little afraid all the time. So he has mentioned this. On the contrary, to decorate him with, to give him back, the king actually like made him the Qazi of Delhi, which is a like very high post. Like you are like a judge, the chief justice. But this made him further more uncomfortable because Islam has various sects within the school of thought. So he was from a different school of thought. So he was afraid that like, I don't know the jurisdiction of this place. If I give a judgment which is like different than the local belief, then like my head is gone. So, and it was a position of responsibility. So he was really afraid that time. Other than this political observations, he has shared some very interesting, like close to human, common man observations. Like Asif was mentioning about samosa, which actually is believed to have come from Middle East, a dish called sambusa, and it was not stuffed with potatoes. It was like minced meat or dry fruits. And I'm yet to research this fact. In one of the tours to Mussoorie, like one historian told me that potato actually is not from this land. The Britishers bought it during the time of famine from Peru. So it's natural like samosa would not have aloo back then because it was not there like grown here. So so that was one interesting fact. Another interesting thing he mentions is like when he enters the hilly area of like the Indus and towards the north, he first time saw a rhino. So he blogs about that I saw an animal like this. A funny anecdote that he has mentioned is that I was invited by Muhammad bin Tughlaq. We had like lunch and then everyone came out to sit in the Hazar Sukun Pavilion to chit chat. But I had a boil on my bum, so I could not sit on the stone benches. And like I was really worried, like if the king wants me to sit and I don't sit, like again I'm gone. Especially like with Tughlaq, you can imagine that you have. He also mentions witnessing the act of sati for the first time in India, but he doesn't give it a flavor like good or bad. He writes mostly as an observer. So these were some of the interesting like things I remember about Ibn Battuta. I'll just see if I missed something. But yeah, for personally, like that's the kind of like history I want to study, because we can relate to it. Like the hunger is still the same. Like we all feel similarly hungry as in the medieval ages people used to think. Yeah, as Asif was mentioning that he was constantly looking to escape out from India. He tried several times that I want to go, but on some context or the other he was not allowed. Finally, there was an embassy who came from China to seek permission to repair a Buddhist temple from Muhammad bin Tughlaq, that it's in your land, you want to repair that for the common public. So it was then like when Tughlaq actually allowed him to go to see the temple and all. There are like Rehla has further accounts of like how he went with them. He got separated from the caravan. He was looted 4 days back again. Like he managed to join the caravan back and managed to go to China. So there were stories of the local thugs and the loot and all. So yeah, that was the whole story. We next plan to like climb upstairs. It's a steep climb and a narrow one. So let's wait for the more adventurous ones to stay back. So that's where we'll end the storytelling and the history part of it. Yeah, for the walk, that's it. I've got something more to share with you. Arunima, can you get that? She's my sister. And Arunima, Aditya Pathak, Aditya Sharma, the guy filming it, and Asif, coincidentally, like 2 years back, of course, 3 of us knew each other. We didn't know Asif. We ended up in a heritage walk for the first time in our lives, and like, I'm happy that it has culminated to this. Yeah, so I've got a medieval thing for you. I've got some arm papads for you all.
This is all Bombay based.
So please feel free. There's something more. Please don't throw the wrappers here. You can return it to me.